Now you can hear us. We are live for episode 174 of Trek Live. Sorry for the delay a little bit here this morning. We're having some technical issues to start the day off, but I'm excited to get into the discussion today. Bill, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Excited to talk about Star Trek costumes. Looking forward to getting into it. Again, apologize for any running a little late this morning. Technical issues happen with the whole live conceit, as anybody who's followed us for any period of time knows. But we're excited to be here, and I think we have a fun topic to unpack.
Yeah. Should be a good time. Before we get into that, Bill, how's your rewatch going?
It's going well. Since the last time we did this, I think I finished. I'm trying to remember when I finished it, but I finished season 2 of Voyager, season 4 of Deep Space Nine, and this weekend I started season 3 of Voyager. So I watched Basics Part 2. I watched Flashback, The Shoot, and the Swarm, are the first 4 episodes to air. So 4 straight for Voyager.
Yeah.
And then coming up, I have I'm about to start the alternating point where it's one here, one there. But season 3 of Voyager starts pretty strong. Big fan of Basics. I think that's kind of an underrated 2-parter.
For sure.
I think it's kind of like it's the TV version of Beyond. I think they kind of take the same idea, like let's strip the crew from its technology and its ship, the thing that kind of binds them together and gives them all the tools and resources. Yeah, and puts them in a position to have to survive with their most basic degree of training and ability and camaraderie and all that stuff. I love the Suitor subplot there. I think his, especially in part 2, where he's kind of having to tap into the violent tendencies against his training from Tuvok, seeing how that's kind of ripping him apart, having to fight against his own improvements and all the progress he's made is really well played. Tragic, complicated. So I really enjoy Basics. I really like Shoot a lot. I think Shoot is one of the more one of the better friendship episodes, like bromance kinds of stories. Unusually dark and although maybe not. I mean, we talk a lot about. I feel like over the last few weeks I've used that. Like, oh, this is a really dark episode. There's a lot of dark episodes of Star Trek. Maybe it's not the maybe it's not the right thing to like keep saying it. They're unusual. Like, it's one of the things Star Trek does is it can push into some pretty dark territory, and the Shoot's just one of those episodes. I think it puts those characters into a pretty dire situation and pushes them to their limits. I love the Zio character, the sort of longtime prisoner who's writing a manifesto. Which is really like sort of. I wonder if he was sort of modeled after Hitler, like having this guy who's in prison writing like a memoir and a manifesto to sort of get to the bottom of ideological things and all. Like it's always what it reminds me of, and it's like jarring and kind of scary. But he's a really interesting character, one of the better guest stars I think to this point in Voyager. So I really like to Shoot a lot. Flashback I think is just kind of okay. There's I think it's kind of a mixed bag. I think there's some really cool nostalgic stuff with the obviously George Takei and the Excelsior Sulu. There's some cool Tuvok backstory about his first tenure with Starfleet and why he left and what his discomfort with humanity was all about in his earlier years. There's some good stuff there, but I think somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, I should have looked it up, responded. It might have been Jared Hitchcock, who's come to our channel
good dude.
At times. Yeah, I think it was him who kind of phrased it like it doesn't enjoy itself enough to because that Flashback and Trials and Tribulations both came out kind of simultaneously as like the 30th anniversary tribute episodes to sort of pay homage to the original series. And Trials and Tribulations enjoys it. It like completely throws itself into this is what we're doing. It makes no bones about that it's a loving tribute. And I think Flashback tries to play it a little cooler and doesn't embrace the nostalgia of it quite as fully, and that hurts the episode a little bit. And I think that the Swarm's okay. I think it's good Doctor stuff. I think the subplots fine, but not entirely
middle of the road.
Memorable. Yeah, middle of the road, exactly. But enjoyable. Just not a standout. What about you? Where are you on yours?
For me, I was only able to watch 2 episodes this week. I watched Favor the Bold and Sacrifice of Angels, so I know it's only 2 episodes, but those 2 episodes do pack a punch.
Big ones.
Very big. They're talked about a whole lot, but I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is, great battle sequences as always, but I do really like the camaraderie of the crew in this kind of two-parter, but not two-parter technically because it doesn't say part 1, part 2. So, but yeah, just great run of 2 episodes, and for me, it's tough. If I watch one, I have to watch the other. So it's not. I can't just watch this one and done. I can't just pop this on one single episode on a Saturday night here or there. It's got to be both. So.
Yeah, I mean, Favor the Bold. By the time you get to Favor the Bold, it's been building so much to that, kind of crescendo of that little mini arc from Call to Arms through Sacrifice of Angels. I can't imagine starting Favor the Bold and not kind of finishing the job. That's a tough spot to stop for sure. So that's definitely often cited. I think that run of episodes is kind of sometimes earmarked as like maybe DS9 hitting its peak, crescendoing its sort of arc-based storytelling and doing things that only Deep Space Nine can do, really capitalizing on the stuff it's been building over the last 6 years. And it's hard to argue with that. I think that run of episodes is as distinctive and fresh and exciting and bold as anything Deep Space Nine certainly ever did, and probably as much as anything Star Trek ever did. It uses the ensemble so well. Everybody's got things to do. Everybody's got complicated things to do.
Quark saves the day.
Quark pretty much saves the day, but in his own. That's the question. Yeah. I mean, he does, but in a typically like uncomfortable and complicated way. It's not. Yeah. He's not smooth in his heroism. He's not a hero.
It's unfamiliar and uncomfortable for him for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's got to kind of be pushed into it, and it's not really his comfort zone. But the fact that he's doing it, I think, is the true act of heroism. The fact that he took the step and did it.
Yeah, I like the fact that the plan, because it's kind of a buzzer beater type of episode. They're on a time crunch to get back to the station before the mines come down, because then more reinforcements come through the wormhole. And it's nice to see kind of, because a lot of the times we see in buzzer beater episodes, if the ship is going to blow up or they got to get off the planet at a certain time, they always make it, and the plan always comes together. But it's nice to kind of see maybe a plan don't go as according to plan. So it's cool to see. So
yeah, it's great. And you got some interesting stuff to come. I think that Deep Space Nine sort of walks the line really well in season 6, coming off of that height and that like serialized run at the beginning. And I think you're about to hit some pretty unique standalone episodes coming up that run the gambit in true Star Trek fashion with genre and tone.
Yeah, some dark stuff as well. So I'm excited for
some dark stuff coming through. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yep. I think we both have some interesting things to tackle in the next few weeks. I know. I'm very eager. I love the fact that it's I'm kind of behind you. I'm like by a season pretty much with Deep Space Nine. But I love going into the episodes with some of the things you say in mind, like because you're ahead of me and these are episodes you just talked about. Yeah. By the time I'm hitting them a few weeks ago, it gives me some like fresh eyes to look at some of these through, and So I'm really excited to get into season 5, which
Cool.
we just kind of talked about a couple weeks ago on here with the See It or Skip It, to give my own like fresh look at some of these episodes.
Yeah. Cool.
So let's get into the topic of the day: Star Trek costumes. I think the reason that I'm really interested to talk about this is I know I'm certainly guilty of when I think of Star Trek costumes and the costume design of Star Trek. The first thing that always comes to mind is certainly the Starfleet uniform.
The uniforms
of it all, like the different uniforms,
what they wear day to day. That always gets the the spotlight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they are the first things that always pop to mind. But I think to kind of push beyond that and look at some of the costumes that are off the beaten path a little bit, that range history and different points along the way, different points along the timeline, and even just back in like human history, Earth history. And talk about things that pop to mind for both of us as far as favorites, things that stand out to us as like memorable pieces of costume design across Star Trek's history. Is there a piece of costume design that comes to mind most for you?
Not really. The one that kind of stemmed this was like Kira's kind of blue civilian type thing that hopefully it's in the slideshow, but that kind of stirred the kind of discussion of, well, we've already done an episode on kind of the Starfleet uniforms and stuff, but I like the progression and from TOS to kind of current stuff. So I like to look at that, and I guess the thing that comes to mind is some of the costumes are just very out there and very, I don't know, I want to say futuristic, but some of the stuff just they take chances, and I kind of like that about some of these. Some are more successful than others, and some are not. Which I try to put an example of maybe a little bit of both. That's the blue that I was talking about, the Kira. I just like that anytime we get to see our kind of main cast in something other than their kind of main stuff that we see day to day, it does feel very jarring. So that's why that one kind of stood out to me. That really came out. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have one that comes to mind right away. I just have a bunch because there is and I'm sure we're going to miss a bunch of one-off ones, but these are just some of the ones that came to mind straight away. I guess just for me, different bold costume designs is one of the things that comes to mind as far as Star Trek in general, because that's one of the things that Star Trek is known for. That's a foundational piece of Star Trek, is these very out there, sometimes great and sometimes not so great.
Yeah, I mean, for the purposes of anybody who might be listening to this on, say, a podcast feed, there's a slideshow running on our YouTube.
Tough.
Yeah, this is a good topic maybe to watch on YouTube if you have the time and the resources to do it. There's a slideshow kind of running of some of the things that came to mind for both of us, and there's kind of different categories here, because if we're just limiting off like Starfleet uniforms, you have everything from very regularly seen non-Starfleet uniforms, like there's some stuff that Quark, some of his outfits are in the slideshow. So those are much more iconic Neelix's costumes or non-Starfleet uniforms that you see very often in Trek, and sometimes rotating outfits. And then there's other like very one-off, like you'll see things that are like from holodeck adventures, like Armand Bashir and Big Goodbye and Brad Chaotic, like the Captain Proton stuff. There's that kind of thing too. And then you have the alien costumes, the standard stuff that you see the Cardassians wearing under normal circumstances, and the Romulans were like different iterations of these things. So it's such a wide ranging topic. It's the question I asked you, like, what comes to mind? There's so much that comes to mind for me, I think, that kind of span all those different things.
And I think the mark of a good costume or a good kind of a good costume or a good uniform is it reflects the person wearing it, like the Herodian. Yeah. Like it looks dangerous, it looks sharp, it looks essential. Mm-hmm. It looks like it fits that alien species. So that's another thing. It's these day-to-day type of ones that we're talking about, like Quark. That feels like something Quark would wear. It feels like used car salesman type of bartender flashiness, kind of, so and same with Neelix. This his are usually very just interesting and very kind of all over the place, and I think that's
all over the place.
That's similar to how Neelix is, and so
eccentric and loud and colorful. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they reflect his personality and his job, and absolutely, I think all that's true. Yeah. So, some of the more one-off things that really came to mind for me, like maybe the first thing that popped into my head was Dax's wedding dress, as like just a really bold and memorable costume. I think the unexpectedness of, like, just one of those weird things. Like at any point along the way up to that episode, do you ever think you're going to see like a Klingon wedding dress? Like, it's such a weird, wacky, like out of left field thing, but the story calls for it, and I think it delivers on that premise. Like there are touches of like the Klingon costume design that had been built up to that time. It's got the kind of bizarre like cleavage reveal window that the Duras sisters costumes feature. So it builds on the sort of Klingon lineage of costumes that has been building for such a long time, but really offers a whole new.
The color choice, the deep
color,
red, bold red. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's perfect, and it's one of those like fine lines to walk. That it's got to be recognizably Klingon and obviously Klingon, but it's got to fit Dax too. It's got to work on her and be memorable on her. Those are two very different things, and I think the way that Bob Blackman, the costume designer, achieved that marriage of Klingon and Dax is why that's so successful, and is such a highlight along this kind of discussion for me, at least.
And it's just it's groundbreaking too. Have we seen something like this before from the Klingon kind of costume design?
No.
So this is just completely. I think it was just really fun to kind of take elements of kind of both and try to put it together and to make this beautiful dress. So
absolutely, and that's another thing. I think one of the highlights of that too is it's always cool to see. I think especially in the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, it becomes very easy to fall into the sort of trap of when you see Klingons, you always see them wearing the same thing. They're pretty much wearing their military. They're wearing the Klingon costume that was designed way back in the motion picture and really made famous in The Search for Spock. So anytime the Klingons get, I love the Klingon costume designs in Enterprise because they don't use them, and they're a little more rugged and rustic, and they have a different look, and I just like it because it's different. It features more variety and more different looks for the Klingons, and I think Discovery does that too, obviously on a much bigger, larger scale. But you're cordially invited, and is an early step of really breaking out the mold of a different look for the Klingons.
Yeah,
I always like that
for
sure. Cyber Honey mentions the Quark costumes.
Okay.
Hard to appreciate it at first because of the odd look of the Ferengi. And it's such an improvement from, I think, the early Ferengi stuff, so more memorable than just typical Ferengi costumes. But I think Quark's costumes are definitely well varied. He's got quite a few different variations, but they're all pretty similar, and I think they all work really well. I think Quark costume designs are always pretty cool. You mentioned earlier the kind of the progression, and I think like looking at these costumes from like the TOS time frame and even early TNG, I just saw the the Angel One costume go by, and I feel like I think William Ware Tice, who was the costume designer for the original series and the first season of The Next Generation, was kind of maybe known for like pushing the boundaries of
deep V's.
You know, yeah, deep V's,
showing skin, yeah.
Showing skin, exactly. Yeah, for men and women, really. I mean, I think he was never afraid to push the envelope and take layers off.
They do that a lot. Plato's Stepchildren. Man, there's a whole bunch. Shore Leave, I think there's some in there too. It's there's a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. There is, yeah. But to give him some credit, a lot of them are really memorable. I mean, they're dated. A lot of them are dated and are not things that you would see on TV today. But they're colorful. They're alive. They're unique and distinctive, and unlike anything you've seen in other TV shows. A lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's stuff in Shore Leave. There's stuff in What Are Little Girls Made Of?
Oh yeah.
There's stuff in the Cloud Minders.
Yeah.
That are really really bizarre and really distinctive, but they're memorable. I mean, I give them credit for the memorable nature of some of those costumes. And Angel One too, for sure, is another example.
Yeah, I think they were, and maybe that was just they were trying to be maybe futuristic and just very out there. And I think now they do feel dated, but I just think I like to at least include a couple just because and mention a couple because it's the progression, right?
It is. They're important pieces of the history of this, like the story. I mean, you can't divorce from it. It's got to be part of the story, and it's part of the. I think it's one of the things that gives the original series its personality. Mm-hmm. I think it's like an inseparable part of what gives that show so much pizzazz and life.
And I mean, the art department has such a tough task to visually show that this group of people is in the future, and some of it lands, and some of it doesn't. There's some stuff that I wanted to include, but it was kind of in that gray area of, is this Starfleet technically? I like the EV suits in Tholian Web. I like those. They do seem a little bit retro at some point, but I think that's just I think that's just a coloring, and I think also we haven't really talked about this, but TOS was meant to the coloring was just amplified because of it coming on color TV. So of course the sets, anything the art department touches, they were just going to utilize the color just because they can. This was one of the first TV shows that were developed for color TV, and so obviously they're going to be a little out there with coloring and things like that. So yeah, right.
One of the things featured in the slideshow from the original series is one of the things I picked is the Miranda Jones dress in Is There in Truth No Beauty, and I picked that just because it's different. Like it's a female costume that is not overly sexualized. It's not removing layers. And it's part of the story too. This is a woman who one of the twists in the episode is that she's blind, and that there are like sensors on this over layer of her dress. So that's part of the story, and it's an unexpected different choice given how so many of the females, especially in the original series, are often dressed. I think I love the blue-green color of it, and
it's elegant though. It's
a good look. It
looks good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a highlight for me. But that's not to say that things like there's costume work in the Cloud Minders that's really cool and I think really interesting and retro and distinctive and memorable. Mm-hmm. Mirror's got some cool stuff. Civilian wear kinds of things.
That's one thing that I do like about the Mirror universe is kind of the costume design.
Yes,
it's really I think again it fits that kind of that universe. It's dangerous. It's actiony. It fits. I think.
Yeah, Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
What about like there are a few like holodecky kind of adventure choices that are kind of woven into our little slideshow here? Are there things that pop to mind for you when you think of those kinds of? Uh,
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, kind of mostly from like the Berman era stuff.
mhm.
Obviously, Captain Proton. Um,
Yeah.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game, which is on the screen right now,
Mhm.
which is nice. I love those uniforms. Um, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of holodecky episodes and types of uniforms and costumes. That's kind of a fun kind of um, mark of kind of the holodeck stuff. But there's a lot of stuff in each of these shows. There's a lot of stuff in Voyager. There's a lot of stuff in Deep Space Nine with Bashir and O'Brien with the Battle of Britain.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of stuff that I think is really cool, and that's I guess part of the holodeck stuff is that these people get to dress up and kind of play that, and we get to see like how they. I don't know. It's just I think it's kind of a fun way to and a clever way to be able to have different uniforms for these kind of characters and costumes. So
yeah, definitely, I agree. I think all the ones you kind of cited there are memorable. The Captain Proton stuff, harkening back to like cheesy 1950s B science fiction movies. Tom Paris's Captain Proton, like leather jacket, is definitely a memorable.
Janeway has a bunch of.
Oh yeah, the Arachnia.
Yeah, not just in that, but I mean we have. Yeah, she has a bunch of not just Captain Proton stuff, but
yeah,
other things. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
that's one of the for better.
Yeah.
Some are more successful than others. The holodeck is definitely the obvious benefit of being able to kind of go anywhere and play in all these different points along the historical spectrum and to do things like this. Costume designer's dream, I guess, to be able to, I would imagine, to play in all these different points along the timeline. I think of The Big Goodbye. I think
the film noir. Yeah, that's a piece of the action is kind of like that too. I don't know if I have
that stuff.
Put that in the slideshow, but I meant to. I do like that as well.
Yeah, a piece of the action's got some really cool stuff with the mob and
the hats. They got great hats.
Vibes. The hats, yeah.
Yeah.
All that stuff's true. I love Gates McFadden's costume in The Big Goodbye. The very like film noir-y, I think that's a really cool look. Armand Bashir, the way it plays on all the James Bond tropes, the different costumes that the various characters wear. I mentioned to you when we were kind of prepping for this, the Worf in the white tuxedo for some reason.
That was the one you mentioned,
yeah. Just I don't know, because it's so weird and unexpected that you would ever see Worf in a white tuxedo. Is a memorable image for sure. Bold choice to put him in that. So a lot of the stuff in Armand Bashir. I think of Garrick's like turtleneck, brown suit, just as like a
O'Brien
Falcon with eye patch.
Oh yeah, all leather too. Yeah, this is.
It's cool. Perfectly in tune with all the James Bond stuff you would expect to see. So a lot of good stuff there. Real quick, just to acknowledge the chat, we have Jimmy77 and Cyber Honey. Jimmy77 mentions the Klingon and Cardassian uniforms as favorites. And Cyber Honey mentions the Parisi Squares costumes that are in the slideshow. The Riker and his dad and Icarus Factor. Definitely memorable.
I'll say that. I won't say color scheme. What I think, but
yeah. But I definitely agree with the Cardassian costumes. They're another one that come to mind as kind of you mentioned the Hirogen as like fitting the species and the sort of organization of whatever is driving the species of the week or the species of the series, I guess, like the very militarized, sleek look of the Cardassians is always fitting and intimidating, and I think one that it's pretty successful, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't get tired of those uniforms.
Yeah.
One that's on the slideshow right now, from where I'm seeing it, I'm a little delayed because I'm just kind of watching the YouTube feed to see it, is the Inner Light costumes.
Oh.
One of the things I like about that a lot is I like the progression even within that episode. I think the colors that are chosen for the different costumes as the episode progresses, like as the planet's heating up, and the way that they shoot the planet gets whiter and hotter. The costume, like when he first wakes up and he's a younger man further away from the end of that planet, the costumes are more earth tones. They're green, they're brown,
Mm-hmm.
and they slowly kind of wash out with color as the way they shoot that planet.
Yeah.
Also kind of washes out and gets white hot. So I like watching the progression of the costumes there, and
Mm-hmm.
how simple they are, and down to the essentials and elegant. I think that's some of the stuff that Patrick Stewart wears is memorable in that episode.
Yeah.
As well. What about
Yeah.
are there other alien, like we have the Hirogen in here, we have some Vulcan stuff in here, some Klingon stuff. Are there other cultures that come to mind for you as favorites?
And maybe it's just because I'm in it right now, but just Bajorans in general, I like that. It feels it does have some earth tones too, but it's got some interesting stuff with jewelry and things like that as well. So I do like that. I for some reason like the Romulan TOS era a little bit. It does feel a little retro with
I agree.
With the color choice, but anytime we can do darker, maybe standout colors, I'm not a fan of the helmets, but the color, the two-tone color, I do like that type of, especially when I see Kirk in it too. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, the I guess I don't know how to put it, modern era, or like the Berman era Romulan stuff is fine, but yeah. I forget the it's blanking. It's similar to the Borg, which we haven't really talked about, but in Voyager they're the like the trash race where they're dumping
the Malon.
The Malon. They feel like they just like emote stench and badness, and and that is one of those examples of the uniform matches the race that wears it. So I can definitely, when I see the Malon every time, I'm like, oh man, they just feel like literally the garbage of the universe. They probably smell and look like the garbage of the universe. So yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff. There's some great kind of more modern era stuff. There's some great stuff at Enterprise that I really like. I like Carpenter Street, the earth tones like you mentioned. I do like North Star. Anytime we get to do westerns, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Cleveland Booker might be one of my favorites as well. His look is just so rugged and kind of good looking.
Yeah.
I like that too. So, man, there's just so much to go over. So sorry,
No, yeah, that's all true. I agree with everything you said. I think the Romulan costume in the original series is a favorite from that era for sure. I like the color tones there.
And it's kind of textured too, which I like.
Yeah,
we don't get a lot of texture as of late. It's more just like more fabric. Later
agreed.
on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Malon are not one that came to mind for me, but I feel shamed because they are so evocative of like everything you'd expect. You can smell them through the screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's they're really successful and really cool. The Vulcan costumes, kind of across time, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Stand out to me. They're very use the word elegant again. And very. They're varied, I think. There's shots in our slideshow here from home in Enterprise Season 4. Some like T'Pol's wedding dress, and Trip in his in T'Pol's father's like male formal wear, which is really really cool. I think some of the stuff in Discovery that they've done with Vulcan costumes in episodes like Lethe are really interesting and memorable and sharp. You know, Michael Byrne's dress in Lethe, I think, is extremely cool. I think you see her in that Battle of Binary Stars right at the beginning too. Yeah. But even going back to stuff you see Sarek in
Journey to Babel
and Journey to Babel.
Yeah, there's some great stuff in that. The Vulcans too, but also a lot of stuff. So keep going.
Yeah, the Vulcan look is, I think, pretty consistent in terms of like overall style across all of it, going back to TOS. The colors change, and there's definitely shifts and progression and the specific styles, but I think the overall vibe that those costumes give off are pretty consistent. And they're echoes across. I think there are echoes in like that popped collar that you see Amanda wearing in Journey to Babel, in Michael Burnham's costume in Lethe. The thing you see Michael wearing in Lethe and Battle of Binary Stars, that collar is kind of reminiscent of things you see all the way back in TOS, and I love that touch.
And 09.
And 09.
Young Spock.
Yeah. There's a lot of attention to detail, I think, across time with the Vulcan costumes, especially, for sure, with variety yet echoes of things that originated from the beginning.
Jimmy77 saying, I really like the overall continuity of the uniforms and clothing designs throughout Trek, and that's what you pretty much was saying. The progression and over the 50 some odd years is, you can see the progression and the you can just see it, which is cool.
Definitely. I totally agree. Rob's also in the chat room.
I meant to put Jayla's.
Welcome as always.
Yeah, welcome.
Jayla and Beyond. There's a lot of movie stuff. We don't have much movie stuff here in the slideshow, but Jayla and Beyond for sure. He also mentions the Hirogen outfits. Definitely agree there. We kind of mentioned them earlier. There's some stuff in Star Trek 6 with the Klingons too. If you talk about like Klingon variety, the General Chang's costumes unique. Gorkon's red highlights are really cool. So
Spock's cold weather gear, like how it opens is kind of like a flower. I think that's kind of cool.
Interesting. In 09.
In 09, yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good call too. A lot of good stuff in 09, I think.
I think just spoiler alert a little bit, and maybe we can talk about a few here. But there's a lot of Starfleet alternates that I kind of want to talk about, and maybe that'll be of time for another day. But that's definitely another one that would be fun to talk about for sure.
Agreed. Yeah, there's that's a whole nother ball of wax. Rob says that he loves how the aesthetics of Cardassians' uniforms are reflected in the architecture. Like there is that consistency for sure that really becomes evident in Deep Space Nine. The echoes of the some of the design work on the Cardassian costumes is kind of
same thing with
making sense.
A lot of kind of architecture. You could do think that with the Klingons.
Klingons as well.
They have like a really sharp uniform, and then I think kind of Klingon architecture is really sharp and menacing too as well. So
yeah, definitely. Cyber Honey mentions the Mako outfits. Yeah, the Makos from Enterprise.
That's alternate.
Different. Yeah, that's an alternate. Yeah, that's definitely. I feel like that for sure is worthy of its own topic. I think looking at some of those Earthbound, non-hero uniforms, I guess you would call them, like the regularly seen uniforms of the show.
Enterprise Desert Storm kind of wear like the wear. That's cool too. I could go to so many. Stuff in Workforce is kind of cool too, and then I'm blanking on the name of the episode, but yeah, Workforce is cool too. I'll think of the name here in a second.
What kind of like what's the
the man, and everyone's gonna roast me in the comments for this, but the one where the doctor is trying to help people, and there's different levels to the
critical care.
Critical care. The stuff in that too is cool too. Just kind of maybe I wouldn't say the costume design, but yeah, costume design is cool too in there. But just the kind of design in general, as far as like the set goes and everything.
The different layers, the production design for sure is.
There's a lot of
key in that episode.
Yeah, post-apocalyptic type of uniforms as well or costumes that we see as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a lot of costumes, and I'm sure we're missing quite a few.
It's endless. There's a ton you could go down. Like I said, there's different layers of it. You have, like I said, series regulars like Neelix and Quark, different things that they've worn that are not Starfleet officers, but have variety into themselves. Kess, one thing we haven't talked about, and because we've had many conversations about it, is characters like Seven and T'Pol have their like catsuit varieties, and that's one of the great regrets that I have about those Star Trek shows. I wish that
we got that
there were
with
different
Deanna.
choices made.
We got the progression from catsuit to
a
uniform, and I actually prefer the uniform.
For sure, me too.
So
I wish there were some. I do have preferences, I guess, among the catsuits as far as both of those characters go, because they both have varieties in terms of versions. But I really wish there was some different choices. I wish there were different choices made to give those two characters different looks as far as that goes. Rob mentions the Vedic and Kai costumes of Deep Space Nine. You kind of mentioned like when I asked you about
just Bajoran,
like alien, and you mentioned Bajoran kind of overall, like their range of things. And I would echo that.
Yeah,
for those costumes specifically, I think they're really great
because they've got such a wide range. They've got like they were saying, the Vedic robes that are big and very prestigious and things of that nature, and then you get the kind of just like normal kind of jumpsuits, Bajoran jumpsuits that they're not jumpsuits, but like the Bajoran security workers. That kind of two-tone V is definitely memorable in my mind, but then also just Kira's solid color, but it's not like a bold color like like Jadzia's wedding dress. It's more like matte, or kind of more subdued, which I really like. Same with her blue one, which is on the slideshow. But yeah, I do like the Bajoran type. So
agreed.
Yeah.
So you mentioned westerns. I'm looking at the North Star screenshot on my.
Scott Bakula looks amazing in his
hat.
his hat.
Overcoat.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock shadow. Yeah, that's I do like when they do the Western stuff.
Yeah, you got a couple examples of that. You get North Star and Spectre of the Gun.
Yeah.
And Fistful of Datas. I think they go back to that well a couple of times with like there are other episodes that I think really embrace Western tropes without like completely going full tilt into the Western like outward stuff, the design work and stuff. But there are a few like the ones I just mentioned that fully commit to the Western, the costume design, production design, and I think they always really work. I love it whenever, in episodes like City on the Edge of Forever and Carbon Creek and Future's End. Anytime Spock or Tuvok or any Vulcan has to cover their ears, the different ways of
Star Trek 4
of achieving that. Star Trek 4,
yeah.
That's always an important piece of costume design.
Yeah.
That's subtle yet kind of really important to look passable and ridiculous, but
cover
not overly
up.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
exactly. A lot of memorable stuff there. Sitting there forever. I think of Kirk's and Spock's. Like those costumes come right to mind. Maybe it's because I've seen the episode a million times, but there's some really subtle, comfortable, easygoing costume work there that's memorable but not flashy. I think that's one of the things, like with the original series and early TNG with Blaine Ware Tice, who's an Emmy winner and an Oscar winner, I believe, like major costume designer across like history. Sometimes I think the risk was always like, do they go a little too far? Do they push the envelope a little too much and go too extravagant or too trying to knock your socks off with the color or with the removing layers and going as minimal as possible? But like that's like the easy thing to think of. But there are things like City on the Edge and Is There in Truth No Beauty, which we talked about, where he goes the other way and it's a little bit more down to earth and subtle in terms of the choices. Give him some credit on that front.
Yeah, it's I think I'm just checking my work here.
Is there go ahead.
But Spock's kind of dark blue, black uniform in the motion picture, I really like that. I think anytime we're in dark colors, I really like it. So yeah, when he comes on the Enterprise and he's got that really dark
robe,
Vulcan robe, I just think that looks so cool. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I think a lot of people beat up the motion picture on costume design front because a lot of people don't like the Starfleet uniforms.
Yeah, it gets a bad rap because of that. Yeah,
but there's a lot of other good costume work in that movie, I think, that goes beyond that. I mean, that's where they design the Klingon stuff that gets seen so many times. I think there's really cool stuff there. I think, like you said, the Vulcan costumes that are there at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
I think Leah's dress when she's converted, the bathrobe / dress is really just memorable and bold. Cool choice. Rob mentions the hierarchy from Tinker Tenor, Dr. Spy.
Yeah.
They have some cool stuff there too. Is there a thing here that you would that you're driven to as like a cosplay? Neither one of us has a great deal of convention experience, but is there a cosplay choice that is
there's
here?
Two, I think. I would like to do Angel 1, the Deep V, or and this kind of goes to a question that I think maybe Cyberhoney asked. Yeah, Cyberhoney.
Yeah, what costume would you want to wear?
Yeah. So that goes back to kind of similar to the cosplay thing. It would be the Angel 1 Deep V or one of two.
Brave man.
Quark suit. I would love to have one of those. I just think that would be just kind of fun to be able to wear.
Yeah.
And then something Bajoran, I think.
Bajoran, yeah.
Yeah. So those two are probably the ones that I would go for. As far as answering the question of cosplay / what do I want to wear?
Things you'd be caught dead wearing.
The Angel one would just be for a joke. I don't think that's yeah. I just put that in there for an example of maybe a different type of costume that was maybe not as successful as some of these other kind of cool.
Yeah.
What about you? Big cosplay guy?
No, that's the thing. Yeah, not really. Not a lot of experience on that front myself. Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go really low key. Some of these like more throwbacky time travel choices, like try to mimic a kind of like our friend Jim Morehouse does. He dresses as Dr. Nichols in Star Trek 4, something like that, something super subtle, and like the Carbon Creek screenshot just went by, something like that, that you see Mistral wearing in that episode.
1950s.
Yeah, something really deep cut. Or Archer's Western garb that I'm looking at right now from North Star, something like that. I'd probably go that route as opposed to bold choices like Angel One or things like that. I'd probably go a different way. Any other thoughts on?
No, we didn't. It's funny. There's a lot of jumpsuits. I think we didn't really talk about. Jake's got some interesting kind of 90s jumpsuits. Wesley has his rainbow sweater that we kind of didn't mention. Maybe there'll be a part 2 to this, just because there is so many that are good and bad.
Good and bad, yeah. I think one of the things that they, especially in 90s stuff, was like coming up with human civilian off-duty wear that looked comfortable and functional and something that you can imagine somebody wearing comfortably. And there's always the pressure to like make it. I think there was always pressure to avoid having it be too contemporary, so it has to have like weird features or something that you wouldn't see out in a mall today, or walking around the streets.
I have one more that I want to mention.
Go ahead.
Picard's polo kind of outfit in 1101, whatever it's called, when he has his saddle and he forgets his saddle. I just think he looks.
Oh, that's okay.
Or is that a different episode than I'm thinking?
That's a different episode. That's Starship Down, when he's on the Enterprise and by himself with the terrorist guys trying to.
Oh yeah, that are doing the sweep.
Carry on sweep.
Yeah. That's the one. Not 110.
Yeah,
01. That's it.
There is cool costume design stuff in 1100.
Yeah, the holodeck lady, that her dress. I like that.
Minuet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the jazz club that has some more like holodecky, period specific costume work, but there's some good stuff in that. Minuet for sure has some.
There's so many. The stuff in the Communicator too. It's more Earth Tony type of. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot.
Yeah, you could go in so many different directions. Yeah. One of the things that I think some of the modern shows went down the rabbit hole with, the 90s Berman era shows, is I think sometimes they gravitated more toward earth tones, browns, greens, in terms of like alien stuff, where the original series and early TNG much more colorful, much more like
opposite.
And I sometimes miss they both have their ups and downs, I guess. Sometimes I think like I said a couple minutes ago, some of those bolder choices that William Ware Tice made in TOS and early TNG can sometimes push it a little too far and be a little ridiculous and don't age very well. But then as I watch like Voyager and Enterprise, by the time those shows have kind of run their courses, I'm like longing for some color and like a little bit more like
vibrancy,
interesting
a little bit,
color choices. Yeah. Not everybody is in every alien society you run into is black or top variant number 42 or different tans or browns. Like I do miss the color from some of those earlier things, and I think to the new stuff's credit, I think Discovery uses color a little better. With things like that,
Mirror Universe stuff.
Just different colors, different looks. I think one of the things that the show kind of needed was a breath of fresh air with that kind of stuff, and I think we got it.
I'm excited for Section 31 type of uniforms as well, but technically that's Starfleet, so I guess that's maybe an alternate. But I'm guessing Strange New World is going to have a bunch of cool different designs or different costume designs, so it should be fun too.
I'm sure. Yeah. Rob says talking about cosplaying, a group of friends went as Beverly Crusher from Sub Rosa. They made little ghost candles and everything. It was very funny. You can imagine.
Yeah.
Um,
it's not really a costume, but it's an alien, and I think it was kind of really memorable. Is the one that Geordi slowly transforms into when they're down on the planet, and they're really like neon, and I think that's for
Identity Crisis.
Identity Crisis, yeah. Thank you. It's kind of a fun. That's more of kind of alien. I wouldn't say that's a costume. So.
I don't know. Like, I guess from like a production standpoint, with that suit that they're wearing, the actors are get into that. Is that costume design or is that makeup?
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably is a little bit more costume design.
Yeah.
Yes. That's like a production question.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bunch I could mention, but I guess we'd probably save it for the alternates.
Yeah. We could go on all day for sure. I think one of the reasons I don't nearly do it as often anymore, and I kind of one of the reasons I came up with the Trekkie Awards way back in the day was to have a category like best costume design for each individual season, and it kind of forced me to think about these kinds of things, like look at the episodes in a season, and specifically like that group of 26, and see what kinds of costume work really stood out to me and was memorable and forced me to like put pen to paper and choose some highlights. And I feel like I need to get back to that and do a little bit more of re-explore some of those things. I haven't been putting as much effort into that with this last rewatch.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. All right. I think maybe we should start wrapping it up. I think we're coming up on an hour of talking Star Trek costumes and such.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I don't think so. I think, again, just a little peek behind the curtain. I definitely am excited to do Star Trek alternates. And I think the beauty of this topic, it got me excited about other things, and it made me think about episodes in a different way. And I think that's kind of our goal in some of these topics. So it's nice to be able to look at an episode differently. Like we look at Angel One differently because of the kind of costume choices. So yeah, I think that's being one of our goals here at Trek Live, and I think we definitely achieved that today.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a really fun conversation. I love looking at Star Trek through all these different lenses, and this definitely made me do that. I thought of episodes and things that I probably wouldn't have been thinking of without having like a topic like this to be thinking about and do homework on. So it was a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Happy Father's Day.
Yes.
Anybody out there watching? We're recording this and streaming it on Father's Day. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Rob, Cyber Honey, Jimmy77, very active in the chat, throwing a lot out there. We appreciate that, and appreciate your enthusiasm and your interest and your ideas. You helped keep the conversation going today, and
you guys make the show.
We thank you.
Yeah. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. We'll be back next week to talk about more Trek. If you want to keep the discussion going outside of the YouTube feed and the podcast feed, Twitter and our Discord server are probably the best way. Discord server is really fun because we get to keep up with people's rewatches and what they're watching. That was fun this week to be able to post some stuff and kind of talk about some episodes. So always a good time at the Discord server.
Yeah, if you're interested in joining the Discord server or want to low down on how it works and what it is, and if you're not familiar, you can DM me on Twitter at TrekFan4387. I can give you the lowdown and the, all the facts, and get you invited if you want to join up and connect on a more personal level with some Star Trek fans.
Shout out to the fantastic folks that joined us here live, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Trek Live.
Thanks, everybody.